This is Reframe, the podcast from the College of Education, Health, and Society on the campus of Miami University. In this episode, we talk with Beth Miller, an assistant professor of nutrition and dietetics and a founding member of the Institute for Food, where she helps people gain access to healthy foods by linking together Miami's organic farm, the local food pantry, and various community gardening initiatives. So Dr. Miller, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. Can you start by giving us a bit of background on your research and tell us a little bit more about what you study?
So the big overarching is I do community-based participatory research, and the larger bucket of what I look at is obesity prevention. So looking at ways to prevent obesity in various populations, and most of them are marginalized communities, low-income populations, ethnicities, Hispanic population, African American, and looking at health disparities. So those folks that, fall into those categories generally are the ones that have the health disparities. And so community-based research essentially is where you're partnering with the communities to help them solve problems that they think are important and that they find, a need to create a solution for. So we're in a partnership so that we can work together. I obviously know research. I have something to bring to the table to help them facilitate the process, but I need them to help me understand the issues, to have access to, better understanding of the circumstance. So it's this working together. What I love about it is it's truly the translational research. That's the piece that I do, is more of that translation into a real world community, into a real world population. Let's see what kind of behavior change can happen through education, through skills development, capacity building, to have them facilitate the change.
So it's not like just knowledge that just goes into an academic journal and just sort of stays there forever. It's sort of that bridge that actually brings that knowledge into like a real world situation or a setting.
Right. And the other exciting part is that we have this co-creation of knowledge. So I know what I know through what I've learned through academic journals, books, my experience, but then the community has their own sense of knowledge about what will work in their community, how their community functions.
And what are some of the factors that could be different from one community to the next, or maybe even some factors that you wouldn't think would make such a big difference but actually do?
Well, it could be the actual geographic location of the community. So what's in the community, what environmental stressors are there, what things like grocery stores are near. You might have some communities that have more access to those types of things. Green space, and then the capacity of the community. Some communities you find that you have really engaged folks living there who want to help and want to be participants. And then you have other times people who are less engaged. And so just the dynamics of the people who live there that make up the community can make a whole different ballgame.
And what is it about low-income families that actually does lead to unhealthy lifestyles? I know we've heard a lot about that connection, anecdotally maybe, but can you spell it out for us? Like what is it that they struggle with regard to being healthy when a family might be low-income?
Well, one is the actual limitations of budget. So it is challenging, and there are a lot of factors and a lot of knowledge, expectations, assumptions that are made about being able to work and eat healthy on a very small budget. And then you layer on top of that access to foods, so access to healthy foods. Oftentimes in lower income communities, you don't have nice grocery stores. You have corner markets where the focus You might have some fruit and vegetable options kind of sitting on the counter, but very few, and it's probably not the most appealing produce. So you have more of the high fat, high salt, high sugar types of foods that are cheap. And so we have these commodities, these types of foods that are cheap. You can buy, really cheap frozen dinners. You can buy soda for 99 cents a 2 liter versus a gallon of milk. So these economics start to factor into, part of that picture. Education, transportation to grocery stores. A lot of times, people have to take the bus to get to the grocery store. They might have 3 kids, so trying to take 3 kids on a bus to the grocery store. There's a lot of barriers to getting there and actually having the value of what that healthy food is. Some of the work that we've done with, for example, in Head Start, we asked these questions of the mothers that we worked with, and they said that oftentimes we're so stressed about whether our water's going to get shut off, whether we're going to have enough money for rent, that when you think about nutrition, it's not just nutrition. They're more concerned about just having food to put in their child's belly. They don't really necessarily, in a perfect world, they'd care about what that food was, but it's just, do I have something that can, fill the void? And that becomes lower on their priority list when they're worried about all these other things, that survival.
Are there some things that people can do to help? I mean, in general, even if you don't know the specific situation of a family or where they live in particular, what are some things that you can tell people to do to improve their situation, or that could help if they're struggling in various ways?
Well, I think one of the things is being knowledgeable about what other services. So if that example of the woman that I used, if she has preschoolers or young children, if she's on food stamps and the kids can get free meals at school, the preschooler can have access to preschool that includes meals. You have WIC, the Women and Infants Children's program that provides healthy foods like a debit card where they can buy orange juice and cheese and cereal and milk. So it's knowing what resources would help them access healthier foods, and then also doing shopping tours with how do you shop on a budget. So educating them on, here's how we can make choices on a budget and have some healthier options.
Is part of it too about maybe switching people's perspective on what eating healthy means? Or, because I feel like processed foods are so ubiquitous. They're just everywhere. I think a lot of people don't even realize how unhealthy certain foods can be. Or, is it about educating them on why they should choose one certain type of food over another?
Right, and then to complicate that sometimes, so the fruits usually aren't a problem. Some of the vegetables, if you're refrigerating, we have another factor of sometimes they don't have refrigeration. Sometimes they don't have a full stove. They're working out with a microwave or a toaster oven, and that's the kind of equipment they have to do cooking with. So again, some of those are other factors that factor into what these meals like, what kind of food is prepared, and why people go towards processed foods that are ready to eat rather than having to be prepared.
I feel like, if there's one thing that constantly trips me up is the convenience factor. I mean, if we're so busy throughout the day, it's so easy to grab something processed or fast food or whatever it may be.
Yeah, and it becomes, again, that shift in wanting to do something different and making the healthy choice an easier choice. That's important, so if we want people to eat healthy, it has to be also easy and convenient as well.
That sounds almost like it might be might take a whole change in the way the system works.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like even a deeper cultural change.
And they do have programs. So retailers that are in low-income communities have programs where they're incentivized to offer more fresh produce at a lower price than some of the other. And then they're subsidized for that, and they're provided incentives so that they don't lose money trying to carry these healthier foods, because that's the problem too. It's like, you know, if you look at the small business person in these communities, they'll say, well, this is what sells.
Right.
So if you can have them promote healthier foods at a cheaper price, then it starts to create that shift a little bit.